next issue of JPA to have from article, which is usually my editorial, to be about cybersecurity with Professor No. Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to tell us a little bit about your ideas. I actually want to write it down, so let me get selected. So, what were the main points you were thinking? I remember you had two tables that you were comparing things. I can't remember what you were comparing at that time.
Yeah, comparing the old concepts such as
Old content would be like what?
might be some massive recall or something like that. So there are something wrong going to the company. So
Say that again.
yeah,
I find this room very noisy. I don't hear very well, and so you have to speak loud to me.
Yeah, I compared with the product warranty obligations, or let's compare with the automobile recall situation.
Tell me a little bit what were your comparisons?
Yeah, so and that one and cybersecurity is also occurred during the normal business of the companies. So auto companies try to sell their car at their best, but something bad things happened. And also the cybersecurity is the maybe internet companies try to, and maybe Amazon tried to sell the goods at their best, but unfortunately, something bad thing happened. And the basic assumption is the cybersecurity is converged or end with the litigation from the consumers. So company had to pay back to the customers. So that's my basic assumptions.
That's a very good idea.
And also the other days, the Indonesian people also gave me the idea when we Stanley presenting. That is the one other axis, and the other thing is, I found some public New Jersey library is attacked by the cybersecurity, and the attacker demand ransom money to, or they didn't give the ransom money, they threatened to destroy the library computing system.
Mm-hmm.
So one consequence is litigation from the customers, and the other consequence is demanding ransom money by the attackers, or intentionally destroy or altered the information, including accounting information.
So did they penetrate the library, or they just were threatening it?
They penetrated the library and special key, or I think they have the access authority of
what do they call this thing? This is when you encrypt someone's disk drive, and then you call them up and you say, if you do give me $100,000, I will decrypt your
ransom.
No, but they have a word for that. Yeah, it is ransom, but they have a word for it. What do they call it?
So I think about those two consequences. So
Context.
Yeah. So first one is to the litigation from the from the customers. It is similar structure or construct with the car recall or things like that. Companies try to their best, but unfortunately things happened, and the thing is at this moment, auditor or the company, there is no option but estimating the future expense. Like car recall, they didn't know how much expense will occur or so maybe product warranty is more similar to the concept of estimations, but the amount of money is a little bit different, but the basic structure is, I think, a little bit same. At the end of the fiscal year, the auditor or the company should estimate, and basically the point of time is at the end of the fiscal year, but it is more important to a bigger situation. It extends to the auditor's reporting day or things like that. I think same as the product warranty.
I think this is very good. Like very good. I could probably ask your permission to steal the idea, or giving you credit, and put it on the article. That's very good. Let me ask all of you. Good morning.
Good morning, sorry.
He made it. That's good. Better than the other ones. Okay. So, what are the cybersecurity threats? Can we make a list? Jamie, you have a fresh mind. What do they call this when they encrypt your disk drive and then they ask for ransom?
Oh, I don't know the actual term.
Ransomware?
Yeah, ransom.
I think ransomware, yeah. Okay, so that's one risk. I don't think that's the bigger. It's a recent thing. This is where they get access to your root and they encrypt your disk drive, and then they send you an email saying, if you don't pay me, I'll leave it that way. And of course, that has to do with also something with backup. And do you guys back up your drives? Oh, look at that face.
Not as often as I should.
How about you, Ben?
No.
How about you?
I back up important.
How do you do it? Oh, important one, selectively.
Yes, like I
such
back
as-
up in the hard drive and also like the iCloud.
But you choose the files to be backed up or the drives to be backed up? How do you?
I choose like if I have some data or like the course material, I back up and pictures.
And pictures. How about you?
I do it once every quarter.
How about you? How
Oh,
about-
I don't know.
Not at all. And there are a lot of people that back up on sticks. See, this is a conversation I have with my MBA class. First week in the technology course in the professional accounting MBA, we have this conversation. Why am I talking about backups here? Why?
Don't pay the ransom and just go back and using the backup data
Yes.
to restore.
But what is the thing you're puzzled with and you're worried about?
the
Like if it's confidential
Huh?
data.
Yeah, that's but the thing you're most worried in this ransomware case is that even if you back up, maybe your backup is already encrypted. Okay, and that's why I was asking about backup.
Yeah, but if you back up appropriately, it should be on a separate device. How would they be able to hack into it?
Because you copied the encrypted files in your normal backup
Well, if you
process.
accidentally backed up once you'd already been infected.
Yes. So that's the question I was asking. In general, that's not a big problem because good backup software has versioning, and you just go to a version that has not been encrypted. But then the frequency of your encryption matters. because you might have to go pretty much back to find a non-encrypted version. So what are the? So this is the threat, and this is you know, my ignorance here. I don't think that's a very big threat. There are much bigger threats. What are the other threats? What are the things you're worried?
Well, if you're a business, like denial of service kind of cybersecurity threats, but I don't know how you can really.
Yeah, I think that denial of service is a different animal. I'll put it here because it's part of the story, but does everyone know what denial of service is? You guys know what denial of service is?
It's where is it where you have like too many, so like a hacker or somebody, they send too many requests to the
That's right.
server?
Typically what happens is that they kidnap routers, they kidnap things with contact on the internet, and they send you a large barrage of packets, which basically get your channels full, and you can't service any of them because there are just too many requests of packets in there. Okay, and that typically is done by a two-step process. First step process is they put software in routers, and then when they want, they activate an IP number, and the IP number activates that particular sets of devices, which basically send message to wherever you want. Okay, so that's the denial of service. It's just basically, this is your entrance, and it gets flooded with messages. Okay, the North Koreans did that to Sony when Sony misbehaved, according to the North Koreans. Many companies have Rutgers had 2 attacks of denial of service last semester, I think. These are not the biggest threats. Denial of service just kind of blocks you, curtails operation for a little while, but is again not the worst. What are the other things you're worried about?
Shutdown of the network.
Huh?
The shutdown of the network.
Shutdown of the network. That's kind of part of denial of service. Because that's what denial of service does, closes access to your network. Good, that's that. But what are the biggest thing? What are the cybersecurity thing? How about Mrs. Clinton? Did you forget her?
No.
So what is it?
Leak of confidential information.
Okay, now we are getting there. What else? Let me say 2 words here. Target and Yahoo.
Well, it kind of goes under leak of confidential information, but loss of client information, like when they steal credit card information.
Yeah. Leak of confidential information. So what happened in these 2 cases?
Well, my understanding is that hackers gained access to the system, and before they were detected, downloaded large chunks of information and copied it from the system.
Okay, can I just capture a word you said? You said here, I'm going to put it here next to Ben's famous words. Before they were Okay, and Yahoo had 2 leaks. Supposedly, they don't know. And these 2 leaks, the second one that was revealed was before the first. And something like 1 billion sets of information were stolen. Okay, did Yahoo go bankrupt? But their purchase by Verizon is in limbo. They don't know if it's going to happen or not. What happened with Target? Basically, usernames, passwords, addresses, maybe commercial transactions were stolen. Did Target go under, go bankrupt? But they took a big hit. Okay, so these are 3 categories here. 1, they appropriate your computer and demand ransom. Second one is they flood your computer with packets and basically shuts down your network. Number 3, leakage of information. Okay, now let's go here to the next thing here and ask you. And you use the word, everyone uses this word, hackers. It's kind of a very generic word for a whole set of different animals. So, what is a hacker and what are the motivations here?
First and third one is to gain a financial
Money.
benefit. Yeah. And the second one is just for the disrupting or
For what?
just for destroying purposes.
Yeah, but destroying is the objective. What is the motivation of destroying?
Like political activism somehow.
So, Snowden and Manning fall in this category, correct?
Yeah.
But would you really consider them hackers? They didn't hack, they already had access, they just took the information.
Ah, so they are not hackers.
I wouldn't consider them.
But that doesn't fall under, so it doesn't fall under cybersecurity?
It does, but I would say hackers illegally gain access where they shouldn't actually have access. But these people were already given access and then illegally, I guess, distributing the information.
So we are going to create a new category here. This is any other motivation?
Like ISIS attacked the White House, it also still remain on the hacker and political activism.
So,
Yeah.
which one?
The Islamic State is attacked the White House, it still remain
Yes,
under
yeah.
the category of
Okay, let's put-
hackers
let's
and
put Islamic
political
State
activism.
here.
So political activism can both sides, can be both.
The Islamic State falls under political activism, correct?
Yeah.
Aren't we missing some things? The original hackers were not really trying to make money or do a political message. What were they trying to do? Have fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, just show off
Show.
like their skill.
And so there is a lot of that. You know, I talked with someone that works for one of the virus detection companies, and they said that half of the virus patches, the identification of viruses, are contributed by people who said, if I had to put a virus in your system, I would do this. Actually, this person was from McAfee, so so there are a lot of people that could do that. Now, is a virus a type that we should put here? Where does virus fall? In a type of cyber attack? Or I think we should put the virus here. Typical virus is an agent that acts on the behalf of something. You have a virus that infects a router and basically creates denial of service. Now, leak of confidential information can come from virus, but can come from just let's call it mining of what is mining of passwords?
So there's several ways you can do this, but pretty much the goal is to try to figure out what someone's password is, someone that already has authorization to access the system, and then by using their password, sign in through their username and get the information or do it.
Okay.
So try to some potential feasible work.
So go into the front door of the system that's the objective, by having someone's password. And what you really would like is a super user password, correct? That does give access only to Ben's account or Jamie's account, gives access to everything. And how do they do that?
Well, the one I personally find most interesting is like social engineering. So they can access all of your information that's public on the internet, and they can use various algorithms to try to determine what your password is likely to be. And then they combine that with various information they gather from the company, such as what their minimum
So
password
find out what's the name of my dog Mochi and try to construct a password around this. Yesterday, or the day before, Friday, I had to access to my brokerage account, and I couldn't get in. They had changed the access, and so I called the lady the secretary of the guy who I deal with, and she reinstated my password. And guess what was part of the password? Mochi. Okay, so that's not a good idea. Let me ask you this, Kai. I already asked about backups and I didn't do very well with the backups. Ask me passwords. Do you use one password for everything? Do you have two passwords? What do you do for creating a password?
I use more than one because sometimes I forget my passwords that like I always use, and then I usually keep like my bank account passwords separate from like things I do for entertainment, because I think entertainment passwords are more easily to be hacked, but bank passwords.
Why is the problem of using one password for everything?
If you lose one password and they get access to all your accounts.
If you, for some reason, review your password, from one moment to the other, you're exposed to everything. Okay, any other good ideas of passwording? Don't you always forget your password in everything? You never?
Yeah, sometimes. But I have like several passwords. I'll try each of them.
How about you?
Yeah, I keep it in my notebook.
Oh!
Yeah. So so I will not forget.
And what happens if someone steals your notebook?
No problem. I just write something, but that means he know what's the meaning.
Oh.
Oh, so you have a coding schema.
Yeah.
It's like me too. Like me
Yeah,
too.
but he
Yeah.
couldn't find
Now,
it.
why don't you guys use one of these several password management systems that you can buy or can get it for free?
Is there any possible that system also be hacked?
It's called Dashlane. That's the most sold. There is a free version and there is a public version. Professor Kogan uses it. Okay?
So we can use
I
it.
don't trust it.
Yeah, same thing with me. I don't use Dashlane because I don't trust it. If I would be a hacker, what would I try to hack first? Dashlane, of course, because that would give me access to millions and millions of people's passwords in many, many different systems. And if I would be the NSA, what I would try to hack? Absolutely. Okay. So what else? Can I hear some other ways of passwording things? Okay. Things like, I usually divide my passwords in two categories, like USA. Financial stuff and other stuff. Okay, I separate those two. And with each one of them, I have rules of building a password. And so none of them are the same. But the problem with that is that one website wants upper and lower case. The other one was numbers. The other one was special characters. And one wants upper and lower case, special numbers, and characters. So in my first category that I don't care so much, even my points in the airlines, I don't care so much because you always can scream and they will give it back to you. But in the first category, it's impossible to build a generic rule. Why? Because they have all these different requirements of passwording. Now, is passwording important thing to discuss in cybersecurity or not? Very important. Now, remember, the moment you start dealing with passwords, you are at the top of the heap. You are legal entry to the system. But that's only one piece of entry. Remember the idea of piggyback. You have really layers of software that you are using. Okay. And just recapping, I mentioned briefly this the other time. You have the operating system. Then you have Windows on top of it. Then you might have a database. Then you have application programs. And then you have interfacing apps, just to tell you about some layers. And when you wake up in the morning and you go into your laptop or into your desktop, the desktop has been updated. You know, Windows updated. Now and then it's very annoying because you have to restart the machine and it's moaning and groaning, and sometimes doesn't work and freeze you. You have to go to an old version. Now, and you know, there are things like Windows, DOS, Acrobat, etc., 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 that automatically update. So they have your password, correct? At least they have a password that goes into that particular application. So that's called a backdoor. Okay, and sometimes that's not even called a backdoor, it's automatic updating thing. So each one of these layers has secondary entrance. So I talked about entering this way legally to your password. Now you can think that each one of these guys here has an entrance, which is kind of a password. If there is no password, that is even worse. Just a secret entrance that people can go in without even identifying themselves. Is it possible that happens? Yeah, it's very possible that happens all the time. Are you getting a little bit worried here? No? Yes. Now, next thing is when you are using your cell phone, many apps ask permission to use your location, okay, to access your pictures, etc., etc., etc. You say no, what happens?
It won't allow you to use it.
They won't set up, but if you say no, the application doesn't work very well. Like, for example, you use Waze in your car. If you say no, don't communicate with Waze, you don't get what you want. But many of them is collect statistics about your usage. That's just for their good, not for yours. But if in Waze you don't give statistics to your usage, and everyone would do that, Waze wouldn't work. It's a groupware application. So this is like the third form of entrance, is other apps giving access. Now, make you a little bit more scared. The moment you gave entrance to the app, you're actually giving entrance to the secondary door. One more thing. Unintended entrance is, even if there was not a back door, the back door is locked, some hackers figure out a way to get into software. That the people that programmed it didn't even think of it. Or the other thing is, a programmer that worked for that company knew how the thing works and figured out a way to use it. Now, just going back to other part of the story, guys, who sent me already the cybersecurity little thing? You did send it, and you sent it to me, and you guys have it there on paper. Can you send me electronically? I don't know how to read paper.
Must be email. Send you email.
Send me email.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, what I want you to do is to send me before what you wrote before this conversation, because I don't want to, Ben had already ideas that I'm going to steal for sure for the article. Okay, he'll get credit. Okay, I will say, Ben the Great gave me this advice. Just joking, but continuing this conversation here. These are some entrances. Unintended access, whereby is a bug in the program. These programs have millions of lines of code. If not millions, hundreds of thousands of lines of code. They were not programmed, each one of those lines of code, by the programmers of the company. What do programmers do?
Find the module, library.
They go on public receptacles of code and pick up code to do things. And that code could have been already virused or compromised, but it could be just an innocent code program that leaves a hole or two. And very common, there is a lot of literature on this, on program faults and et cetera, et cetera. So, at least we had unintended code, secondary door, top entry. I'm going to tell you a very old story. I was a student at UCLA before many of you were born, okay, getting my PhD. And there they didn't really have a system like a timeshare system, but they had the computers with wires tied to it. And the student room was a thing like this. And you would go in there and use the computer because it was wired to the computer. So there was no idea of people calling in and attacking the system. What they had is a little screen, and you would go in, put your name and your password. So some ingenious guy wrote a thing he called Sucker. And Sucker had the same screen as the regular screen had. And you go in and put your password, nothing would happen. Type in again, nothing would happen. Then you would get mad at that terminal, go to the next one, and get on. And that terminal had your password now. Very simple. Is that something that doesn't happen today? So how does that work?
It's called phishing. They'll send you an email claiming to be the system.
So the phishing is a method. What is it? Password. Did I spell this right, Jamie?
Yes.
I shouldn't be asking Jamie spelling questions. He's a foreigner. He's not American. No Americans in this room. Particularly under President Trump's definition of American, correct? If you have a green card, you have a green card, correct? You have a nationality too? Me too. But he wasn't born here, although he looks American. Do you know that? Don't blush. I predict this guy is going to be publishing a lot. I'm giving him a hard time at this moment to make him a good scholar. I think you'll be good. She's not American either, although she might look American.
Yeah, right.
What does it mean to look American,
Yeah.
Nicholas?
Ask President Trump then. President Trump, two wives were from Slovenia, I guess, and etc. His parents were from Germany and from some other place, maybe Ireland.
Maybe if you put a toupee on too, you'll look more American than Trump does.
With no hair, I look more American. Look at what a middle-aged American looks in the middle of the country. Even fatter than me, and no hair. Okay? Anyway, what does it mean? You know, I was just saying this yesterday, political conversation here. I was saying yesterday, the country belonged to the Indians. And then it started belonging to the Pilgrims, who came over and killed a lot of Indians. And they came to this country because of religious persecution in the UK. And then, in the end of the 18th century, a lot of Italians and Germans came to the United States for very similar reasons. And also economic distress, make money in the New World. So instead of being, they call it red-skinned or white-skinned, now they are German-skinned or Italian-skinned. Okay? Then the next kind of wave came from where? Hispanic. Oh no, in between forgot African. Okay, importation of slaves. And then the next one is Hispanic. 19% of the US population is Hispanic now. This is the nature of the country. Why can't it be partially Arab? What's wrong with that? Particularly when we are going there and bombing their houses. If my house would be bombed, I would be moving somewhere else. Wouldn't you? Ben is just looking and saying, what kind of conversation is this? Yesterday, our chancellor, she's the president of the Newark campus, wrote a very strong letter saying that we are here to protect the minorities and this and that and et cetera, et cetera. And then maybe 6 hours later or 8 hours later, President Bachi, president of the university, did the same thing. Okay, and I bet you, although I don't know exactly for sure, that a large majority of US large universities are working that way. And you say, great, they're defending liberties. It's pocket, defending the pocket. Rutgers has 17,000 foreign students, if you put everything together. And if you start blocking them to come to this country, like happened with after September 11, there'll be a big hit on their pockets too. And I believe Nancy Cantor, our chancellor, really means business. Okay, not because of her pocket, but that's okay. So going back to this conversation here. Here, what did we establish? Many ways to get into systems. By the way, you don't need to get into a system to steal secrets, do you? You can steal the entire system.
Yeah.
Take it home and then attack it. And that has happened. You just copy the raw code using the operating system and suck it up. This was done mainly by people from the large software and hardware manufacturers for testing. But God knows if the NSA or the KGB haven't done that. The KGB has a new name.
So my question is, in that case, I understand how large organizations that have data storage space like the NSA could do that. I mean, you take the whole system, you put it on storage, then you try to attack it. But if I'm like just an individual hacker, like how am I going to get all the information from a company like Walmart on, like that's a lot of server space.
That's difficult. You need to be very hungry.
Then also the entire time it takes to upload that onto your server.
Same kind of thing. You can be detected. But you know, this detection stuff hasn't been working very well, correct? Let's do detection. What is detection? And you're talking about volume. Detecting large transfers of data. It's really weird that they didn't detect Snowden capturing all that information, which says what I usually say about this, about government systems, that they are very weak.
But he also did it over a long period of time.
Say that over.
He did it over a long period of time.
Yeah, but he copied the entire files, entire photo, and the Manning copied the entire set of wires of diplomats of the foreign service. Okay, which just to begin with, they should not be in one place. They should be segmented in protected places with different operating systems and passwords. No system engineer or super user should have access to all information on one place. Okay, but continuing talking about this, what are the other things? We attacked this whole area of access, and then we talked about some methods and some analogies, and then we talked a bit about motivation. What are we missing here? Remember, this is an audit class. What are we missing? Andrea, what are we missing? This is an audit class.
I was trying to tie it to internal controls.
Okay, so let's talk about a wider set of things. Is why should auditors care? And if they care, what should they care about? Okay, the first thing I could be talking about, you know, this Professor Palmon asked me this last week in the car, is why do we care? Why are we talking about this? Because I want to start a specialization in cybersecurity, like with our Macy. And why do we care? And why do we care? heard a word. I already heard Andrea telling me that we should be looking at internal controls. But I didn't hear a question, why do we care? Remember, we are audit class, so we're talking auditing. Ben.
Yeah, it has the impact on the company's financial state. Eventually.
FS, financial statements. What else?
If there's a way to audit this, then auditors can make a lot of money doing it.
Ah! I wonder why we said that first, not second, not first. What else? Actually, I think these two are a good reason. Okay, the first one, impact of financial statement. If there is an impact on financial statement that is material, we care. And the second one, if you can make money, we care. Okay, now let's go to where Andrea started. Okay, why internal controls?
To prevent the cybersecurity incidents.
So it's a generic category of things that happen in your financial systems that protect them. Correct? What else?
Would you repeat one more question again?
Huh?
Would you repeat one more question? Please say.
I'm just
again.
asking the question again. Besides worrying about internal controls, what else is related to, this is another class. How do we detect? Okay, let's say you give me credit, you say, it does have impact on financial statement, I can make money with this. Okay? And now, because of that, I have to think about internal controls. Why? Because I make money by creating some kind of opinion on internal controls that there is good cyber security. What else in this whole story important for auditors? Professor, no, you missed half of it, but sorry I had to change it because no one showed up. So I was having class with Ben and me and Andrea. Okay, I invited Professor No, who is my co-author in this masterpiece, to participate in this conversation. And we are going to have to give credit to Professor Ben here, because okay, no, in 20 seconds, a recap. And I think it'd be good for you to do the recap. This is systems, and this is potential fraudulent entry into them or entry. You have many layers of application, and these layers of application, there can be backdoors, okay? And can be unintentional entry points that people, unauthorized people, can have. And there is the passwording, and the passwording can have different levels of permissions, and the passwords can be harvested. Okay, Ben talked about making analogy to product warranty. I think it's a very, very good idea because there is this passive liability that exists there that should be considered. Okay, and actually that's a part of estimating future expenses. So actually this actually ties up with potential impact on financial statements. Now, certain types of events and cyber leaks. Ransomware, denial of service, leak of confidential information, viruses, and a method of collecting passwords. Then motivation of cybersecurity people, of motivation of cybersecurity problems. First hackers, then for financial profit, for financial activism, for fun. And finally, the question is why we as auditor accountants care. And I think these two reasons tell most of the story. And I think money first, meaning you can make money by providing services. Second, there is impact on financial statement. And then, as we care, we have to look at the company's internal controls. And we need to look at evidence related to cyber threats. What's missing on the story is tool sets. Tool sets means what? How do you know that you have been broken in?
You have certain detection software that can detect suspicious activity like firewalls.
How does the software know this is suspicious activity?
Like if there's access maybe from an unregistered IP address or one that's not like, if you operate in New York and all of a sudden there's an IP address in Nigeria that's accessing your system, that would be red flag.
Oh, IP addresses, huh? You think there is software that does that for you?
I have no idea, but that would be my guess if I were to create a software.
Smart guess. Yes, there is software that does that. And probably not sitting in your computer, but probably large companies have software that looks at unusual IP numbers. I bet you there is a very nice library of Russian hacker IP sets. But they don't use their own IP. They go here, they go there, and then come back. What else? But IP numbers, very good. Does everyone know what an IP number is? Okay, IP number stands for Internet Protocol Number, and is a unique number that your access of Internet has. Looks like this. It's a 4-component number, smaller than 256, and every time you connect to the internet, you borrow one of those. If you go on the wall and there is an IP number that's a fixed one, in general, you borrow one when you turn off. If you turn off your computer, turn it on again, you get a new IP number. But families of IP numbers are given to institutions. Rutgers has a family of IP numbers. And each country allocates IP numbers in their own country and goes kind of down. So you kind of know, if you know the IP number, you know where things come from, except people can smurf the IP number by going to some anonymization site or something like that. The other thing is if you have a local area network in your house, and if you'd asked this 10 years ago, everyone said, no, I don't have one. If I ask it now, everyone says they have it. Okay, it's a router in your house. Usually the IP numbers inside and outside are different. Okay. Meaning, your router gives a local IP number to your cell phone, to your laptop, to your desktop, and very soon will be your watch, your heating of the house, and et cetera, called IoT. And the other thing that's happening, IP4 is becoming IP6. they're adding components because we are running out of IP numbers, believe it or not. So IP numbers, important component, but not very determinant because IP numbers can be smurfed. What else?
Flow of information. So,
Ben, you're right, but what is the flow of information?
usually come and out, yes, such a thing, but yeah, out of
Like volume, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Volume of large amount of information. So if you're a good hacker, you don't bring out a lot of information at once. You bring it in very slowly. What else you can do to detect software breaks? Cyber attacks.
Maybe one really bad way of detecting it is when you actually either see the information published somewhere else, or if you have, I think it was either Home Depot or Target that had this happen, when people were all complaining that their credit card information was stolen, then they looked and they realized, oh, actually, that's our fault.
Can you send me an email to send them the biggest cybersecurity breach list? I think there are 20 that I have. Okay. So what you said here, if I understood you correctly, is external detection, meaning someone used your information that they shouldn't have, and you discovered that this is really weird that they have your information. It's kind of difficult because these days Google, Microsoft, Apple capture a lot of information about you that you don't even know they are capturing. Andrea, when you send me that email, keep the list because you don't start sending one by one because we're going to have a couple of other ones. Ask me to send you the 14 things that Google knows about you. Okay? They are very trivial, but very interesting. But think about it, not only Google, Waze knows a lot about you.
Yeah.
Okay? What else? Who else knows a lot about you?
The NSA.
I don't think so. They could, they have the tools, but they're incompetent. Who is very competent on mining and getting information out of what you do with them? Amazon.
Yeah.
They are very good. They are very good. What's happening with the NSA is the NSA has this differentiation between Americans and non-Americans. And the NSA is allowed to capture any information they want about non-Americans. But the moment you have an American nationality, you are protected by all kinds of laws. And technically they cannot go after you. And so they now claim they only collect data about data, metadata. Okay, so what they call metadata, this was actually an episode on 60 Minutes talking about NSA. Someone from NSA was talking about what they can collect or not. And like, for example, what's in your telephone call cannot be collected, but they think that they can collect it, the phone number that you have and the phone number that you called and how long the phone call was, metadata. I think we at Bell Labs use that all the time, and that wasn't metadata, that was data. We didn't have to collect, we knew who called, and this whole kind of use of Petri nets, use of networks, of inbound and outbound calling detection is very common thing. Yes?
I thought that part of what Snowden and Manning released was evidence that the NSA was in fact collecting this information about
Absolutely.
So they aren't supposed to, but that doesn't mean that they aren't doing it.
But what's happened is that a lot of the collection of the data was in the routers and in the main backbones of the internet located in the United States. And what happened is that a lot of the traffic of the internet are progressively not coming to the United States. There is an estimate I've seen that the NSA now has only really access to about 1% of global traffic of information.
But then if they aren't like this massive data center to collect all this information.
To have the capabilities to do it.
But to not actually do it, that seems a little fishy. Just me personally.
What do you think?
I think that they collect all the information, whether they use it or not is up to them.
They couldn't collect all the information. The information is too much. Too much. Meaning
I
it's
think some
petadatas
information
and
may be like
petadatas
useless
of.
to them. They don't care whose Facebook profile maybe that is relevant though. But I don't think that they constantly have a thing saying, oh, this is everything Jamie's done. But I think that they definitely have the capability of, oh, I'm interested in Jamie, type in a couple of things and now I can see everything on his phone.
They are not that competent. Don't overstate it. If they're interested in Jamie, they'll have to invest a few $1 million to find information about Jamie. That's what I always say in class. I say, forget about privacy, it's all gone. But don't worry too much, you're not very interesting. Now, if your name is Abu Jamie and you live in whatever, one Arab country, and some of your buddies are naughty, then you are interesting and they are collecting information about you. And took a little while to discover that Abu Jamie was interesting. Okay. Well, I like your skepticism. I'll go and give you a book to read.
So if I add something, then I'm going to collect the entire data set, what they usually do their screening. So based on their criteria, if you fit that criteria, they start screening, they start collecting your data.
But like my concern would be that they're worried that, okay, well, Jamie only became interesting now. So we only started collecting information now, but really we want to know all the past information. So they're preemptively collecting that information in case they're interested in the future. I guess that's a lot of data.
Every place, collect the data. So what they usually do, once they identify those people, they will keep track of it, and they start, data mining. So they collect the data from the other sources. So once you expose yourself in the internet, there is no way you can delete. So for instance, if I put my picture on my Facebook, there is no way I can delete it because someone may copy and put it in their Facebook or somewhere. And
So they're
also,
relying on that kind of thing too.
right. And then also once you put it in there, and even the Google, they cache, meaning so they're gonna capture those temporary data and put it to somewhere, and eventually they're gonna delete it. So the data is never in it. And as the big plus said, is the privacy is totally gone. Once you put something data on the web or internet, then there is no way you can delete it. It's hard.
Yes, I totally agree, Professor No. But the thing that protects you the most is the volume of the data. Okay, and it's just impossible to keep all records of everything that happened on the internet, and you don't have access to them. Okay, and when I talk about big data, and I talk about using social media, using IoT data, using weather data for research or for other purposes, always the limitation is, do you have access to that? Can you get it? You could use Facebook data for a lot of analysis, but it will cost you a lot of money. Okay, and even if you had the NSA, you don't have the resources, the number of users in Facebook or on Twitter. Twitter is easier because Twitter has very small uteruses. Okay, and progressively Twitter will have everything Facebook has and vice versa. But the volumes are, just one of them, the volume is very large. Imagine I bet you in Korea is Kakao, correct? Isn't that what they use? Okay, as in China is? Yeah, one of them, correct? There are many of them. Okay, so it's very difficult to collect all of these. And they are not that good on mining characters as they are good in mining text in the US. It's more difficult, at least for us. For them, maybe it's easier.
So I just want to clarify, they are not, the theory is that they don't have to store all the information because if they need to access it, it's already available for them to get.
Yeah, and Michael Ellis calls it data sifting. And I don't particularly like the name, but data sifting is this kind of preliminary thing that you do from a very large batch of data to bring the data to something manageable. And if you start talking with a lot of terrorists, they'll pick up your phone number or your IP number, and they'll progressively you fall into the sift more and more. We did this project for Dun & Bradstreet a year and a half ago, and we are finding a lot of Abu Jamis, okay? And finally, Abdullah, who was on the team, said, Abu means father of. Everyone is Abu, okay? And you know, if his name like Mohammed or some common name, Abu Mohammed, there are billions. Okay, so it's very, very difficult. And this same problem, what they call PEPs, persons of political interest, very difficult to determine, particularly if the name is John Smith or something like that, or Miklos Vasarhelyi. There are a lot of Miklos Vasarhelys in Hungary. Miklos is a pretty common name, and Vasarhelyi. There are 6 cities in Hungary, which is tiny, that are called Vasarhelyi. Okay, because it means from the place of the fair. Vasar is fair, Hey is place, I is from. Okay, and so, and Miklos is pretty common. It's not Michael, it's Nicholas in English. Okay, so names, there are just not too many names. Just think about finding a Liu or a Li or a Chu in China. It's very difficult. Okay, so names don't do a lot of things. IP numbers are a little bit better, but you have to pull it all together. So don't overstate your worry about what the NSA is capturing. Okay, certainly if you are in good behavior. If you're in bad behavior, maybe you can worry a little bit more. Still, probabilities are very low. Okay, so final question, and then we'll go to talk about survey article that I want to discuss. If you were writing an article about cybersecurity in accounting and audit, particularly in audit, as Professor No and myself hopefully will be doing soon, what are the things that you would do? Writing an article is pretty easy. Figuring out what you're going to write in the article is difficult. When I talk with PhD students about writing dissertations, I always say the same thing. Once you know what you're going to write, you can write a chapter in less than a week. I did my chapters in 2 or 3 days. Went into my office, there was no cell phones or internet at that time, and in a few hours I banged like 3 pages an hour. That was my rhythm. I was Brazilian, I couldn't speak English that well. Okay, so 30 pages chapter, 10 hours, 2 days, 60 pages. Easy, if you knew what you're doing. And when I did my statistical analysis, I did all my analysis using APL at that time, and then I wrote it up in 2 days. And at those times, you have to type the dissertation. And if you made mistakes, you had to retype the page. It was very expensive. You hire a typist, you better not make a lot of mistakes.
I think the first thing that I would address in a paper like this, because I don't think there's a lot written about the subject, would be like the first point on there. Does this actually impact companies financially or in terms of their reputation and things like that? That would be the first thing that should contract.
I totally agree. I think we have to say that. We have to justify why cybersecurity is an audit issue. What else?
I just wonder, it's not in the accounting information subject, but how about figuring out the patterns or trend about the lawsuit about information leaking litigation? Because you mentioned nowadays the information is more vague or how can I say, more available to the others. So maybe if person's information leaked, but it's not that important before 10 years ago, or more important, I'm not sure. But and also it related to
looking at litigation makes a lot of sense, except my suspicion is that there is still not a long history of litigation in relation to cybersecurity. But of course, the litigation story goes very, very strongly with the impact financial statement. The other thing I always think about is that one of the reasons to look at here is the part of the financial statement that is called going concern, or the audit, whereby it's possible, although it hasn't happened very much, that the company will go bankrupt because of cyber leaks. And if that's the case, you should be able to detect them and detect that there is a going concern, worry. What else would you say here?
I was thinking, like Jamie said, you have to justify why cybersecurity is important to auditors because it impacts financial statements. But you also have to think about where cybersecurity fits into the audit risk model. Fits into inherent risk, or is it part of control risk?
I'm going to call it C estimate. You just motivated with that comment, you motivated the paper. Okay, why auditors care and where does cybersecurity fit in the model? And what I would like the emphasis of the paper be, that's in the outline, is do not force feed the cybersecurity problem into the traditional model. And my three issues there are the issues I brought up before. First is don't try to use materiality on this. The second, don't use the 0-1 model because doesn't fit well. And don't make it point in time. And at least that's my idea. Now that I'm going to read your little comments on this, I am going to enhance my ideas on the paper. But first, point in time. It's pretty clear that most large companies have been hacked, meaning there are people somewhere that have illegal passwords. Your girlfriend, you gave your girlfriend your password to Amazon to order something, now she has a password. Number of divorce based on husband looking in the wife's email and vice versa. Pretty big. Yes or no? Jamie says yes, he's an expert.
Now my friend's trying to be a divorce lawyer, and he was telling me, for other reasons about this big case he had, there was a similar issue where the wife went in through the emails and found a bunch of stuff. One thing led to another. Now he's trying to hide assets. There was like a whole separate story there. But yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. Millions of dollars in this lawsuit.
And you know, in many of these cases, the husband gave the wife or the girlfriend the password. And then he has all these compromising emails over there. So that's really stupid, isn't it? Is it?
That's what I said. Do something like that, at least be a little more secret about it.
Yeah, but that husband having the email of the wife, is that a security leak?
Yeah. She wasn't authorized, but he was.
It's an interesting question. It's a voluntary security leak. You know, there is dark websites that has lists and thousands of passwords and usernames. That's clearly a leak, correct? How do they get that? By breaking into some system and picking up the password, particularly the ones that are not encrypted. Okay, so this is a question of point in time. At any point in time, there are a whole range of security leaks of every reasonable size company. Okay, so you can't give an opinion this company is secure. Now, if you can't give an opinion this company is secure, would anyone pay money for it?
I have a thought related to all this. Maybe you could incorporate this into a new factor in the audit risk model and lump it in with other factors and call it external risk. And you could have something like cybersecurity. You could have things like, for example, if you have a large amount of debt that you're holding in your company, that could be an external risk. And you could try to lump it in with these other
Clearly,
factors.
it's cybersecurity is should be part of the audit risk module somehow. Although there hasn't been a lot of litigation against auditors, none that I know, based on cyber breaks.
But there's no.
But typically you sue the auditor because the auditor has the deepest pockets of companies going bankrupt, don't have a lot of money.
There's also no standard or anything that's, at least that I'm aware of, that says auditors should be looking at this. So there is really no liability on their part, even if you want to.
And auditors, let's say audit firms get sued much, much less in their consulting than they are sued in their audit. It's more difficult to nail, has to be blatant incompetency.
You audit
Maybe
firms?
we can sue the big firm that advised the Rutgers on the installation of the new set of ERPs that we are doing there, because for 6 months we haven't had the budget number. Okay, but very difficult to make those things stick because the contracts are pretty litigation proof. Okay, so that's not very. But I think you all agree that point in time has a problem, that there are always leaks going on, and etc. The second thing is the 0-1 opinion. Does it mean anything to say you have no security problems? You have a clean opinion? Why doesn't it worth anything? Because it's a lie. Correct? It's very clear that most companies at any time will have some degree of leak. The husband knowing the wife's password, a group password being identified, a Russian spy getting in there and capturing a lot of things, and a lot of latent threats. People are collecting information very slowly and accumulating it. It's pretty clear that those things happen all the time. Okay, so a 0-1 opinion doesn't mean anything. So auditors shouldn't be doing this because they can't give an opinion. Don't say yes or don't have a paper. Say no. Auditors can't give the 0-1 opinion, but they can give opinions. Meaning the 0 opinion, meaning everything is clean, doesn't make sense. But what can they do then? What is the alternative then? Did you ever get an email back from Chris Haldeman?
No, I didn't.
I'll help you with that. The alternative is some kind of rating scheme, saying this is 1 out of 5 good. And Chris Haldeman, this is the guy who wrote the the cybersecurity guy for the ICPA, mainly the E&Y guy, he talks about the maturity model, although they are not adopting. Maturity model is the cyber model. This is a level 1 of maturity, this is level 5 of maturity, very secure, insecure. And you would, when you define very secure, you would put some weasel language on it saying, however, there might be some little leaks. I don't like it because it's very blocking, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Again, the same auditor mentality. What I think they need to do is a multivariate type of thing with several standards. Do they have monitoring? Do they have revealed breaches, some parameters, and rate each one of the parameters. Okay, and maybe you can at the end add them together, divide by 5, and give a maturity model. I don't like that, but that's the way they do it. Okay, and then the point in time discussion is this is a continuous type of thing. And what I like most is the thing that we figured out originally in what we call the control seal. I wrote it up somewhere, I can't remember where I published it, whereby this is your systems. Okay, this is your website, and you issue a control seal that says everything is going well. When some of your detector things come in, you start changing the color. Instead of being green, becomes yellow. If it becomes yellow, this is a notation everyone understands, green, yellow, and red. Okay? That's a way that you can do it, and you could create some kind of algorithm, very simple algorithm that will transform this to this, and all the moment in time. And then you charge money for issuing warnings. The bank wants a warning. You charge him money. You like that or you don't like that? Is this creative enough for you or not yet? Yes.
My question is how auditors are confident for their ratings.
How they are going to do it?
Yeah.
Professor No is going to write the guidelines, or Professor Chris Haldeman from E&Y going to write. When I talked to him about this, he really wants to issue the guide, and it will be a 0-1 point in time thing. It doesn't fit. I say it's a round peg in the square hole, or a square peg in a round hole. But they want to issue it anyway, and I'm not terribly worried about it, because I think it will take a little while until it catches on that someone even hires that service. So, but if that happens and stays for 10 years, it's going to be litigation after litigation. And the other thing is, big obstacle to what I'm talking about is auditors don't know how to grade. Even professors have this big grade inflation. Everything is becoming an A. Average grade for Princeton is like 3.5.
And it'd be different for big companies and small business, because for big companies, even if they are very secure, their systems are well protected, they have all the.
But you know what you just said? You just said here is that there are different dimensions. One dimension is the size of the company. The other dimension is the level of penetration.
That will be considered.
Huh?
Well, that will be considered, because for the hackers, they are not interested. For the small businesses, they maybe want to target the.
I think small businesses are a different story, but I think there is interest in small businesses, and but what the answer in small business is going to be, this is going to be part of something else that you sell them. Like in a vision package, we have now a security detection thing. Remember the economics of software, or of many technology things, is a big startup cost, and then the incremental usage is very low cost because cycles are cheap these days. Storage, saying storage is cheap is misleading, because storage is becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, But the number of things you need to store are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Multiply one by the other, it's not going to be such a dramatic change. But it's there too.
So how do you think that the size of companies plays into all this? Because in traditional auditing, right, you're just testing for materiality, so they can sample like a small sample, they can find...
I didn't even start in materiality. It's good that you bring it in.
Because my concern would be, right, if you have a small company and you only have one weakness, one person that is a problem, then obviously you can try to fix that. But if you have a larger company, it may seem that if you have like 100,000 employees, having 30 employees that are weaknesses is not that big of a deal. But in reality, when it comes to cybersecurity, any one weakness is actually a big deal because it puts the entire system at risk.
Depending on how your security is set up. If you have a Snowden or a Manning and they have access to everything, everything gets compromised. If you segmented your databases and don't allow your contractors to touch more than one piece, your risk is 1/5, 1/10, 100.
But when you were explaining one of the methods that I've never really heard of before, when you were saying that you could back up the whole thing and then try to attack it at home, like then even someone with relatively low clearance could still back up the whole
But as a good statistician, you say the probability of they doing that is low because you have protections against that too.
But not if the information in the system is worth it to these people.
What is the expected value of something? Is the cost of that something multiplied by the probability that something happens. Likelihood function.
Like if I, for instance...
There is nothing is absolute. I like your objections, but that's a discussion needed in our paper. Discussion of magnitude of faults.
Because for instance, if I was a country that, like, for example, I'm banned from trading weapons. But if I could get someone to get in to work for Boeing, even at a low level, and back up their whole system, then I can just spend a year trying to hack into the Boeing system and then get all the information I need.
And there are even bigger risks than someone copying it out. Is someone walking in there, picking up the device and carrying it out?
Right, but internal controls hopefully prevent that from happening.
But I think the probabilities are there in both of those. I'm not totally sure if the physical is better protected than the... Say that again?
Is this current topic's audit?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, visitor. You're a visitor?
No, I registered late.
Oh, okay. So that's the interesting question. I think all of these things, Jamie, don't get so adamant about this, is a question of expected value likelihood. And you're right, the risk, if someone can capture the entire thing. Well, the worst is the CEO is a bandit. That's why CPA firms do a lot of background checking on the firms, on the management, because they say we can't audit something that management is crooked to begin with.
So in an ideal system, you're saying the CEO even wouldn't have access to all the information in the system?
I'll ask Professor No that. When I don't ask something, I'll ask Professor No. And Professor Stanley. Okay, but that's, of course, a very valid question. I'm just going to go, and we're talking about these multiple dimensions, and we are just kind of defining some dimensions. Size of the firm. The other one would be, of course, nature. If you are a brick manufacturer in Bolivia and you don't have a computer, your risk of cybersecurity is pretty low. However, if you are interlinked the entire world, it's pretty certainty that you have been broken in. The question is how deep. Depth of the break, whatever the other variables here. Okay, so I need to stop this, but let me kind of give you my bottom line. Although I really thank you. It was very good to have this discussion. It will be much easier for Professor No and me to put together a little bit about it. My bottom line is what I said last time. my bottom line is that the traditional audit model does not fit very well. I didn't even talk about the materiality. I'm sure I'll be talking about that. Meaning you don't know how big the defect is, therefore you can't decide if the defect is material or not. However, you might be able to estimate that the defect could be big from this thing, could be smaller from this, and et cetera, et cetera. So what basically my bottom line is that the materiality model materiality, point in time, and 0-1 doesn't work, and I'm sure I'm going to, with the help of Andrea a little bit, I'm going to come up with other things that the traditional audit model doesn't work. Okay, and so my argument, and I have a secondary interest on this, or maybe as a primary interest, is I want to say that there are many other things that the auditor should be doing that don't fit in the traditional model, which is the old carriage model as opposed to jet plane model. And we need to, and of course my main point is continuous auditing, and which I have been having this big battle for decades, that point in time is not continuous. Materiality doesn't make too much sense in there, but size of the relative error does make sense. 0-1 makes no sense at all. Okay, so obviously I have a secondary motive, but that's the discussion. You guys need a little break?